Welcome to the Life as an Observer podcast. My name is Ryan Bean. I am your host in self-observation. This podcast is an exploration of physical and non-physical self through discussion around yoga, meditation, self-improvement, self-realization, and practices that elevate the mind-body-soul connection. Let's start observing. This episode of Life as an Observer is made possible by patron support. If you'd like to support this program, you can visit patron.podbean.com/lifeasanobserver to learn more. Hi friends, welcome to Life as an Observer. Today I get the really amazing opportunity to talk to my friend Bart Scholtissen. Bart is a former neuroscientist and kind of had some of the same stories as us, where we get burned out, but his story is so unique and kind of transformed his life from the life of academia and, after getting his PhD and working in that field, to then really realizing that truth and healing and happiness was really found in their own or his own true nature through the nature that's all around us. Bart is a podcast host. He is a breath worker, a cold immersion facilitator, just a master trainer and communicator. And in this episode, Bart and I really kind of dive really lightly. I like to say we like to dive deep, but I think our conversation could have been hours and hours and hours. I think we got to do another one, maybe for the patrons. So if you're a patron, you might get an episode of that. If you're not, you can go check it out on the Patron page. It's patron.podbean.com and Life as an Observer. And maybe we'll do some additional conversations over there. But really we started talking about just our trip to Poland together. And then we discussed some things that are up and coming with our agendas and what we're doing next. The conversation evolved into psychedelics and our true nature, some philosophy around, how we worry and really what we worry about, and just philosophy about some of the intricacies in just being human. We conclude our conversation discussing some opportunities for the near future, and maybe additional trips, retreats, and so forth. So I'm interested in you to hear what Bart has to say about what true happiness is, where we can make changes in our mind, thus influencing how we feel. Thanks for joining today to Life as an Observer with my dear friend here, Bart Scholtissen. Well, hello, Bart. Good to see you. Good to hear from you on the other side of the world. I'm so happy you were able to join today. We've been talking about this since we were in Poland. So welcome to the podcast, Life as an Observer. That's Bart Scholtissen. And I want you to kind of do the introduction yourself, because you do a lot of things. And I don't think I would do your introduction very much justice. I know the stuff that you're doing with Back to Nature, and I'm very familiar what we do together and what you do on your own with Wim Hof method and some of the things that we've explored. But, as I read your bio on your website, and, we have a lot of things in common, from being an academic. Just from being in academics and doing a lot with testing and science and medicine, to realizing that was just not the way to, as you say, really to get back to your own true nature. And
exactly.
So I'd like can you kind of walk us down the introduction of what got you to where you and I are now sitting in a podcast talking about how to be happy? Can you tell us where that started about 20 years ago? Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And well, first and foremost, thank you for the invitation to be a guest on your show. Really, really honored. So where it all started was me having an easy childhood, so to say, with a photographic memory, easy learner, and then it was all the more obvious that I would go to college and study and become something, which turned out to be a neuropsychologist and neuroscientist. And I wasn't that system for a long time, up until a point that my body decided not to cooperate with me anymore, and pull the emergency brake on me. So then I had to reinvent myself, had to let go of a number of beliefs I had about what reality should be like in this academic scientific world. And I started soul searching. So I turned into soul scientist, coming from scientist, so to say. And a number of things really struck me, that we overcomplicate things. One of the big epiphanies in my life, like I used to make things so difficult in my mind, I sort of stopped that. I found ways along like the Wim Hof method to uncomplicate things, unfuck myself, unfuck my brain, and unlearn. And that's also when I found a coach that helped me through my burnout period, in which I was in 2013, 2014. And well, my dog is going a little bit crazy here in the background, but anyways, just let nature do its thing.
Yes.
And so my coach took me into nature. I was expecting a coach that would, put me in a room and talk to me in a room, like I used to do as a psychologist with people. But she said, no, we're going to go outside. And I was like, but why? You'll know. And that's where I started reconnecting with my nature, in essence, and started realigning and letting go of even more limiting beliefs, and started feeling grounded and connected again. And then from that point on, I thought, okay, but you are really helping people. I studied like more of half of my life to help people, and you're just taking me out into nature. Can it be this simple? And I feel better. And then I said to her, like, I want your job. Tell me, what do I need to do to have your job? And then she said, oh, maybe you should start your own company or whatever, or be a self-employed professional. And I was like, no, but I'm a psychologist. I need to work for the university. And then I was still in my head and still thinking about a lot of things that I thought I need to do. And she said, well, maybe you can use all the knowledge that you have gained up until now in a more adaptive, appropriate way, instead of just being in that box. You're not this kind of person that needs to be or wants to be in boxes. You don't thrive there. So you should be outside of boxes. And then, and that's when I started my own company, which originally was called Change and Development, because I thought I have to have a flashy English title. It has to have something to do with, well, helping people change and develop. So easiest title would be Change and Development. And then after that, I changed it into Back to Your Nature coaching, because in essence, that just covers the load way better. So what I do now is I take people into nature to let them reconnect with their own nature, which in the end is the same, because this is nature just as much as nature outside is nature. But that wasn't clear to me at the time and point that I was traveling on that route yet. That's sort of a long story short. The Wim Hof method is part of it. Breath work, grounding, barefooting, forest bathing. So there is a lot I do, but in essence, there is only one thing I do. I help people be themselves.
Yeah. Which is, don't we spend so much time trying to create who we think we are, right? We just as humans, I don't mean you and I, just in general, like as humans, we spend a lot of time creating who we think we are, or who others want us to be, so they'll like us more, right? So we'll be likable, we'll be employable, we'll be good in a relationship. And I think we talked about it before we came on, about our beards and how you groom that and how you groom your hair. If you start, so those who don't know, both Bart and I have amazing hairstyles, and
curly.
Super curly. But I would say that most men who are going through a pattern of baldness have a moment where they go, will I be loved if I lose my hair? Will I be, if you're not already in a relationship, will I be accepted? And so we go through that, who am I, over and over for different times, and we don't realize how that affects us. But for me, it affected me massively when I said, I'm going to go ahead and start shaving my head and growing my beard. What am I trying to prove? And so going back to nature, the way that nature intended it, has so much less resistance, doesn't it? Like,
yes, there is more flow. So and yes, obviously there is resistance, but that's the type of resistance which you can either choose or use to grow. So without resistance, like there is this Dutch saying, I will translate it literally into English. It's like, without resistance, there will be no shine. So you have to rub something a bit to make it shine. There has to be some resistance to grow. Yeah, so we need a bit of resistance, we need a bit of stress, but we have a choice, and we create so much stress in our lives by wanting to find external gratification for all the reasons you were just naming and more, and we're not aware of it. That if you start stripping those off and start connecting to what is and what you truly are, then it is lighter. It becomes lighter. Maybe not easier all the time, but lighter.
Yeah, I was out in a place this weekend. I was out in an area which used to be silver mines. It's an area called Silver Reef, and they have it's just really beautiful. You can see all the different greens and blues from the minerals being on the rocks out there. And, there's people camping and doing different things. And I see so many people preparing to go into nature, meaning like they have their big rigs, they have, they pack things away, they plan these trips, and they spend a lot of time preparing to get into nature. But I don't think that we really need to prepare, do we? I think that there are other alternatives that say I can prepare minimally and get into nature on a very simple way. So I kind of, if you were to coach me in this way to saying, I'm someone who's like an overthinker. So I'm packing, I have my big rig. I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to camp. I'm putting my agenda together because I want to get relaxed. Damn it. I want to get relaxed and get into nature. Right.
Yeah. I would probably just ask you to take your shoes off, for instance, because part of this preparation is that I see, I was like a short anecdote. I was in the Swiss Alps a couple of months ago, and I was hiking there, but I had barefoot sandals on, and everybody I met had heavy mountaineering boots on, and they, to me, they weren't necessary at the altitude that we were still at. So maybe if you're summiting somewhere, then maybe you need those heavy altitude mountaineering boots. But at that phase where I was, 2,500, 3,000 meters up, it wasn't necessary. Everybody was looking at me like, you are crazy. And I just thought, I'm traveling light. I'm way faster out of the situation if I need to be, because I have these lightweight shoes on. So what I often do with clients, if they are so much in their head, like, yeah, but I have to do this, and I have to be calm outside in nature, I have to be present or whatever, they're in their head, they're just overthinking. So then usually, and I did it today with 2 clients too, so I asked them to take their shoes off, and they're like, but why? Like, well, do you trust me? Do you trust yourself? Just do it. And the furthest away from your mind in your body that I can get you is your feet. So, and then all of a sudden, these people are without shoes and sort of a bit embarrassed that they're taking the shoes off and about the stigma or the dogma that might be on there. But then they notice what it does to them. It reconnects them with nature. They get the insulation layer off between them, the soles of your shoes, and then they become calm really quickly. And it might hurt, and they say, okay, so if it hurts, you're feeling something. And then they're in their feeling, in their bodies again, instead of in their mind. So that's one of the easiest ways I sort of get these over analytical people out of their heads. And it works every time. It's simple but profound.
Just taking your shoes off. I mean, we did an exercise like that when I was in Poland with you, and we just sat into the river. It's one of my favorite moments and actually you captured a really great picture of me doing that, because
luckily I took a shot.
yeah. It was one of my favorite moments because it felt very easy, even though the water was freezing cold, and even though, the air temperature was very cold, and there was an expectation, I think, from many of us that we were going to get into the water. And so we had this anxiety level, maybe that was on a subconscious level. We're going to go do this. And it changed on us to say, all we're going to do is sit here, put your feet in the freezing water, and just be. And just be, not without expectation, not be here and meditate, not be here and breathe, not be here and do something.
And just be. Yeah.
Just be. There's a place in southern Utah, really close to where I live, and it's on Native American land, and it's a slot canyon. And when you go to the reservation, you check in, they take you on a tour through this slot canyon. It was carved out by the Colorado River, and it's now part of Lake Powell. And anyway, it's an amazing slot canyon. And it's one of the largest in the world. It's just an amazing little spot. But everyone that goes there, they have to hike in. So they have their boots on, they have their packs on, their gear. And I remember being there one time, and it was maybe 100 and something degrees outside. I don't know what that is in Celsius,
Hot.
but in fair, very hot, over boiling. And we start to descend down into the slot canyon. And I remember that the bottom was sand. It was red sand. And something just within me said, take off your shoes.
Yeah.
Take off your shoes. So I took off my shoes, not in an effort to say I need to ground, not in an effort to say I need to do something. I just was really curious about what it would feel like. When I took my shoes off, I found that temperature of the sand was cool to the touch. And the guide that took us in there, he was playing a flute, he was playing a wood flute, a Native American flute. And that scenario was very similar to when we sat in the river there in Poland, where it was just walk and be, no expectation, just listen and feel. And those are moments that I capture, like snapshot in my mind of times when I felt fully connected to nature, but fully connected to myself too, and those
are the same thing. Nature.
Our own nature. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, there's a lot of amazing places in this world that I think that they're in our backyard, aren't they?
Sometimes it's just hiding in plain sight. We always feel that we should travel to like the other side of the planet. And yes, obviously there will be beautiful places there too. But if we start by observing what is here, right in our backyard or your backyard, there is so much there. And that's also something that Wim also sort of got me reconnected to, because he was, I think he was here at my place 2 years ago, and we went for a walk around back, and a walk that I do on a daily basis with my dog. And he just was mesmerized by tiny little details that were there that I also didn't see anymore. And then I thought, wait, but it's here. I should just, lower my pace, ground, become more connected to that nature that is here, and then I will see. So it's right here. And then obviously that's right here on any spot of the planet you will be on, if you choose to see it.
Yeah, so you brought up Wim, who, an amazing teacher to both of us, and I guess we can talk about that a little bit. So Bart is an academy instructor for the Wim Hof method, taught me and
best.
No, you did great. And something that we talk about within the method is when we get into the cold, people will say, well, why do you do that? And of course we can talk about the health benefits, which I will tell you something that happened to me coming back from Poland that you may be really interested in. But really for me, that is when I feel most present and grounded is because there's something that happens within our mind. And I don't know, maybe, as a neuroscientist, you can say, but something shuts off that says, I don't care about the anxiety of the future. I'm not stressed about what happened in the past at all. All I'm in is survival mode at this moment. I'm in the fight or flight response, and then I'm calming it down actively or passively, depending on how you look at it. But, but for me, I think actively, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get into my breath. I'm going to settle in, and I move into that space where I feel most, and in yogi terms, we use that term all the time, grounded. What does grounded really mean? What does grounded really mean? So when we get in, so maybe I'll ask you that question. When we get into the cold and we get grounded, what does that mean to be grounded?
Connected to yourself and everything surrounding you, and to me, in one space. We sort of, I feel and think what we did as humans, as Homo sapiens, we disconnected ourselves from everything else in nature. So we made ourselves some kind of special thing outside of nature, and we are not. We are intrinsically related to everything on this planet. And if we strip all of those barriers down again, and going into a cold water or cold environment is a real nice way to do that, then you can only you cannot not feel that connection. You can think your way out of it, and then you will get very cold. You can run your way out of it, and then you will not have a learning experience. So the only thing you can do is, if you are choosing to go into that situation, embrace it, be it. And then you are connected, and so grounded in the most maybe profound way imaginable. And then there is no yesterday or tomorrow. It's just now. So you're fully in the present moment, and then your body can do what it's supposed to do: create extra heat because you're in a cold environment and you're a mammal and you want to stay warm on the inside, at least in your core. And you just switch off all of the other mumbo jumbo in your head, all of the thinking, like the monkey brain just silences. And all of that because you go into cold water, just simply and profound.
Yeah, I took an ice bath last night with some friends. And, you know, in the wintertime, when you don't heat your pool, it's quite wonderful. You have a beautiful ice bath ready for you at any time. You know, here in Southern Utah, it warms up in the summer, so we don't have natural bodies of water we can get into. We have to create the ice baths. But in the wintertime, no problem. We can get into any swimming pool that's not heated. We can get into the river. And I watched that happen. I watched one friend who has always had a reason to not get in. You know, it's always been like, well, it hurts too much. That's not for me. You know, maybe one day. And then I watched another friend who said, I can do that. And then he was the first one to say, I can't do this, and got out very, very quickly. Right. So it's very amazing the way that our mind, over time does mold and say, this is back to who I used to be. Almost de-evolution, right? Almost like we've evolved to this place of comfort, and now we're de-evolving back to our maybe Homo erectus, or even, you know.
You can ask yourself the question whether it is this place of comfort, actually. I think it's the place of artificial discomfort that we call comfort.
Yes.
Because the natural comfort is that we are able to be what we are, who we are in the present, in the presence of mind, in the presence of now, in the state of now. And we just have, we have evolved, if you want to use that, and we have evolved ourselves out of that. We have created this non-natural situation. So by going into cold, we get back to what we really are: nature, energy, in motion, present, connected.
Yeah, I find it through that practice, and I also find it through, you know, meditation and through the use of psychedelics that I realize that I'm so much more than who I think I am. And I had a guru in India, and he had told me that yoga is the sledgehammer to knocking down the walls of who I think I am, who I've built my entire life. Yoga is that sledgehammer to just saying, take the wall down. Let's open this space up and create this little space for us. And part of that I learned through really just deep, you know, movement and breath and being connected in a yogic way. The major part of it I learned through getting into the cold. And then the way that I kind of obviously there's a practice that happens daily. Otherwise we just go back into our old patterns and build the wall up again. But through the use of altered states, I realized how my thoughts affect my physical being, and my physical being affects my thoughts. It's like this, it's this top-down regulation, bottom-up regulation. And we're constantly I wouldn't want to call it a battle, but we're at this weaving point where I decide what is true nature and what is perspective, right? Because of many times perspective, we believe it to be truth.
While it's just a perspective.
We're like
a view on a potential truth or non-truth.
Because some would say getting into the cold is painful, and I would say that's that's perspective. I wouldn't call it painful. I would call it very wonderful. I'd call it comfort. It may be uncomfortable the first breath, but some would say maybe that is
second two.
maybe 2 or 3 breaths. But we sort of change that, and I think that as we go deeper into the mind work, we go deeper into the neuroscience, we go deeper into like the way that our thoughts have built walls up around us. We have to learn different techniques to deconstruct those walls so that we can go back to nature. Because putting your feet into the cold is great, but I don't think that's all the work. There has to be much more than that. Because that might be enough for some people, but those who have really endured heavy traumas, those who have experienced generational trauma, and that's woven into their DNA. It's woven into their DNA. And even woven into our diets. If you really think about it, the way, I mean, I think sometimes even the water we drink is is traumatic. You know, I think sometimes the food that we eat is genetic, you know, GMO, and it's been and it's traumatic. So, you know, back in it was in 1940 when Albert Hofmann decided he was going to, you know, started when he was working there in the chemical lab, and he created LSD 25. You know, he created that that component, and I'm not sure exactly how he got it into his body. And maybe it was on his finger, or maybe he like stuck it in his mouth, or who knows how he got it in the first time. I don't know if that's really been documented, but I think it was 1943 or sometime around there where he made this, and I think it was made for women's menstrual cycles or something is what he was making it for. I don't really remember what the reason was, but he found that he was in an altered state of consciousness. He said, you know, something was different. He went home, and then a couple of days later, he said, I'm going to do that again because it felt good. It felt as though he was, and I think he took a lot, which took him into a very deep place. Because of course, it was just experimentation. You know, it was experimentation to where it was going, and he learned a lot about himself in that state, the altered state. And of course, we fast forward to was it 1962 when the Good Friday experiments happened with Timothy Leary and you know, Ram Dass, and they did for the audience, I'll kind of fill them in if you're familiar, but basically I think they took 9 theologian students and they gave them synthesized psilocybin, and they had them listen to the sermon, you know, whatever that sermon was, while some of them were a control group, which I think they gave them some sort of niacin or something. I don't know what they gave them, but they gave them something that gave them like fuzzy feelings. And then they had the non-control group and the control group. And then they took out all, after they wrote their feedback, they took out all mentions of it being a chemical or given something out of that. And then they gave it to other people, other theologians with the criteria. I think it was 10 or so criteria of what a biblical mystical experience would be. And I believe it was, you know, 80% of them, it was a lot of them, all but one, I believe, had what was called a mystical experience according to what would be biblical, right? And we read about all these biblical experiences, I mean, obviously in the Bible, but other texts, the Vedas, the Upanishads, even, you know, in all kinds of religions and further, thus telling us that something has happened with our de-evolution where we've lost touch from this experience of connecting to nature through its fruits. We'll call, you know, it could be a mushroom experience. It could be, you know, a cactus. It could be all kinds of different ways.
Depending on the location on Earth you are, there are different plant medicines or plants that will provide you with an altered state of mind, an altered state of consciousness.
But with our breath, we can also experience that altered state of mind. And I want to ask you a little bit about that, about altered states and our connectedness to who we truly are, because I think, and I'll word it a little bit better for the question here, but we have built this personality who we think we are, and we put on the clothes, we groom our beard the way we think we are, we live in the house, and we do all these things. But when we go into an altered state, whether that be through chemical, I mean, it's all chemical, whether it be breath, it's an endogenous chemical, or it's ingested chemical. We're in an altered state of consciousness, which then opens up the realm of us being, the yogis call these the 5 sheaths, right? They say, we have our physical body, our mental body, our vital body, our higher state of thinking body, and then we have our bliss body. Okay, so we have these 5 bliss, these bodies. Tell me about our nature's way, or back to our nature's way. What is our plane of consciousness where we can connect to our true self? Which one of those is it?
Very good question, but maybe, so we're talking about altered states of consciousness, but maybe it's original state of consciousness instead of altered, and we have altered into something that we now think is the truth, or but might be just a viewpoint on truth, and we have built this ego construct around well, whatever. Apparently, and we need that to a certain extent in this 3D body meat suit that we are in, and then when you either do breathwork or something else to detach from that ego, that's what happens. I think that you let go of that ego part, and then you're present again, and then you can just observe things probably. But I don't know whether there's any hard science on that yet. You can observe things as they are, so you can sort of glitch out of your matrix and be. And I don't exactly know what's happening in your brain at that time and point, but I do know that it feels like home.
Yes.
To me, the experiences I had in that, and so the experiences I started out with breathwork, because when I was still in science and in neuropsych pharmacology, I thought I will never do quote unquote drugs, because I will have to let go of control. But that control is my ego wanting to control things. So then by starting doing breath work, I all of a sudden notice I'm still in control because I am doing the breath work, but it gets me into these states that I have never experienced. At least I couldn't remember that I have ever experienced them, but they feel good and they feel okay, safe, no judgment, open. And after that, I started experimenting. I'm not a big experimenter, but I started experimenting with plant medicine, and that gave me similar experiences. Maybe longer, maybe deeper, but similar. Hyper connectedness to everything, without the judgment that our egos might put on it, like this is not okay, or it should be like this or that. So to me, it feels, I always learn about sort of true nature. They're like, without the, I have to trim my beard like this, have to wear these clothes because otherwise somebody will think that I'm a nutcase or whatever. No, I can just be. And that's also what I observe when we are, for instance, with groups of Wim Hof method students, that the mindset there is like, you're okay just the way you are, even without the breath work. We don't need the breath work to do that. And but what you see in a week is that the more you do breath work, the more you do nature exposure, the more open people will be.
Yeah, I think each other. I think you hit on it, that the ego might be that wall that I just talked about. The ego is the wall that the yoga works through. And when I say yoga, I just really mean the union of the body, mind, the soul. I don't necessarily mean asana, warrior two. I mean, that wall is maybe created by the ego saying, this is where I feel safe. You're familiar with Plato and his, the cave shadow puppets, right? So the story of these prisoners who were in the cave, and they had these shadow puppets on the wall, and that's where they lived their whole lives there, watching these shadows on the wall create stories of life and everything around them. And when they were given the invitation to leave, they were resistant because they didn't feel safe. And so maybe our ego has created a place where we think we're safe, but really there's so much more beyond that.
Yes.
That safety net.
And one in whatever which way, when we learn to go beyond that sort of virtual safety net, which is maybe has been put there for the right intentions, but you're not growing anymore. Maybe it was put there for the right intention of safety and keeping you safe and limited, not straying away from this narrow path of okayness, so to say. But then when you go there, it's like, but this is possible too, and I'm still alive. Oh, and this is possible too, and you start growing and learning and turning into yourself actually more. And that's when doors open that might be hiding in plain sight, have been hiding in plain sight for a long time, that all of a sudden you now see and are able to pass through into multiple altered states of consciousness, into multiple realities that we might be living in at this present time and point, without the ego judgment that there is only this one reality.
You make a really great point there about there being multiple points of reality, because, we talked about the bliss bodies. I just had said that, but I noticed that with specifically different chemicals, that obviously they do give a different effect and affect me differently. So, with doing research with psilocybin or doing research through ketamine, totally different experiences. They're not the same. They're completely different. And we learn a little bit more about the construct of our mind, is what I think I'm exploring. But in all honesty, there's healing that happens, and things that we use in the yoga world a lot, the word manifesting, but I find myself a lot manifesting things in altered states. it's more readily available than if I just think really hard about it. And I think that's the problem maybe with like even like Freudian therapy and some other, is like we think really hard about it. We sit and we think and we think and we think, and yet we create a cycle that is a circle of nothingness. And it's just, and I think
maybe that is a problem. Maybe we think too hard.
Well, I think
maybe we should stop thinking.
Well, it keeps therapists employed, doesn't it? If you never get healed, if you never really get healed and you don't feel free, then you continue to go back to your therapist and you say, okay,
probably
I'm not free anymore. So really, all of this leads up to one thing, at least in my mind. And I think that I'm putting words here, but it's to be happy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's to be happy.
I think a choice. But happiness cannot exist in this 3D world without so light cannot exist without darkness here. And once you can become grateful for the darkness, which is inside of every cell of us, then you can experience happiness in a more profound way. And in the end, we are all very able to live, like Wim says, happy, healthy, and strong lives. But if you just focus on healthy, we are able to do that. But we have to go beyond our limiting beliefs that we are not good enough to live healthy lives, to live happy lives. So if you find whatever which way to do that, then you open that floodgate. You don't want to go back anymore. No matter how hard it might be to stay in that motion of, but this is actually, it's okay. My life is fucked up, but I'm okay. So that blissful state of being. And I see a lot of people like that I think Westerners who describe as enlightened, like Dalai Lama or I can never pronounce his name, Thich Nhat Hanh, the right way. Like they always have this sort of mysterious smile. They are happy with whatever is.
Yeah.
And if you become more detached from physical stuff, whereas it's beautiful that we have physical stuff, like we can talk to each other now because we have technology. We could probably also talk to each other without the technology, but that's a whole other story maybe. So we can use this technology at this time and point to communicate and record this podcast, and that's beautiful, but we don't actually need it for our being and survival. And so when you become more detached from all that clutter or that monkey brain clutter, but also stuff, you live lighter, and there is all of a sudden room to be happy more and to connect in a more happy and open way without the judgment, without the attachment. That's just, whoa, this is what is beautiful. Thank you. And you move on to another experience again.
Yeah, Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras, he says that there's one of the 8 limbs of yoga. One of them is called Santosha, and Santosha means contentment. And I think that's really for in that way what happiness really is, right? It's not about saying I'm happy when I'm at the top of the hill. I'm not happy when I'm at the bottom of the hill. I am okay with no matter where it is, because we hear it maybe even as a cliche, but it's not about where we're going. It's about where we are right now. Let's be on the journey and let's enjoy this journey. And what I wanted to ask you about with this was those who are where we were, we have lots of advice, but where you're maybe I have a job, I have a kid, I have to make the money, I have to do this thing. And I don't have time for all of this woo, Ryan and Bart. I can't just pick up and start putting my feet in the snow. I have a job that I have to go to in the morning. I have to feed kids at night. So breath work at nighttime is not going to happen.
That's a lot of you have tos.
Yeah, that's what it's what it seems like. It seems like a lot of have tos. Give the listeners baby steps. How can they find this contentment roller coaster with where they are now? Because a lot of times they get these self-help plans and they feel very overwhelmed. And I know we started at the very beginning, just put your feet in and take your shoes off. But after the shoes come off, what's next?
Depends on what you need. Maybe there is something before you take the shoes off. Maybe you all the have-tos you were talking about will distract you from being present, to my opinion. they will either put you in a potentially future anxious situation or a regretful past situation. Whereas those two things are non-existent at this time and point.
Yeah.
And that's also what I had. I was a master in being non-present and being either paying attention, a lot of attention based on shit out of the past to future situations and keeping myself out of potentially beautiful situations because I was never present. And the more present I can be in this moment, in the now, the lighter things get. Like 99 out of 100 times, there's really nothing much to matter in the present moment. So
it's true. You know what Winston Churchill's his quote where he said he was talking to a man who was on his deathbed, and the man said that his final words were, "I had a lot of trouble in my life.
Yeah.
Most of which never came true."
Yeah, exactly. We fuck up so much by spending so much time and energy on past and future. Let's be grateful for the past and be grateful for the future that might appear by being present. So before taking your shoes off, and that's the cool thing about breathing, because it can only happen in the now. It doesn't happen a few seconds ago. It doesn't happen in the future. So breathing to me is one of the most profound ways of connecting you with the present moment. So if you can inhale and shortly hold, and then exhale and shortly hold, so one round of breathing without getting distracted or by past or future, you're fully blessed in the moment. And the more you pay attention to that, and that's the feedback loops your brain provides, it's like the more things you pay attention to, those will grow. So the more you pay attention to the blissful state of being in the present moment, the more that will be reinforced in your brain. So whenever you get distracted for some reason, mind chatter or external chatter, you can, wait, I've got a choice. I can inhale, be present, and be the eye in the storm again. And you can be happy. You are happy there. That's maybe your natural state. Aware of all the peaks and the lows, they're existing, yeah. But if you're present, doesn't matter. You're on a journey, and it's always present spot.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. You couldn't have said it any better. Thank you. I mean, that's exactly it. But but though for some, those are just words. Present moment. What does that really mean? And you mentioned it earlier. I wrote it down because I think this is a really important part that you started talking about, is that you started your journey with a coach. That it was really like, I could do this on my own.
Yes, but you're not alone.
You're not alone. Like, let's do this with a coach. Let's do this together. And I think that I kind of like you to talk about that a little bit, maybe where they could find you too, but also the importance of a coach in helping you, accountability and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, we are a connected species.
Yeah.
We need to make our own choices. Like, I need to choose to be here or be somewhere else, but you're not alone. So, and one thing the academy taught me is that I should always have the answer right away now, and it should come out of my mind. And now I'm happy to say I don't know. Yeah. So, and then I'll ask somebody, hey, could you help me? What's your idea? What's your viewpoint on this? But we are not trained in asking for help and asking for connection. Because if I ask you for help, I connect with you, and then I still have to make my own choices. But I get inspired. I can draw seeds, and I still have to water them into a tree myself. But I get seeds of inspiration from different places and people that I can use to choose. Okay, this is the path I want to travel on.
Yeah.
And we are so used to living somebody else's life instead of living our own life that we have to unlearn that and let go of all that bullshit to be present again and start creating our lives here now. And you cannot see the path ahead of you because that's somebody else's path. You're walking your path right now. You're creating your path at this very point. So that's why a coach, I think, or somebody guiding you or helping you through this process is an external observer. Your podcast does have a nice name. So you have this observer that can look at your process without judgment, but just observation, and ask questions and provide you with seeds and insights and viewpoints that you should incorporate into yourself, into your life, because it's your life. And then you start moving in a better way, in a more owned way, in your way, not in somebody else's way. I lived somebody else's life for a long time. I lived a life of expectancy of my professors that I was working for. I lived the life of my ex-wife that I was living for, and my kids. And now I do my best to live my own life as much as possible, which might sound selfish to a number of people, but actually really isn't. And if we all do that without the judgment and attachment, then we have this super diverse community again, really quickly, that works together, that is connected, and still with single cells, with single individuals that choose to do their own thing, connected.
I think we've been in tribes for ever since, right? So, yeah. And whether it be through, ceremony, we've had someone leading us, whether it be to passing on ancient ritual, someone has taught it. And I think we've come into this place where we think, I can do this on my own. I can listen to a podcast and read a book and I can do it. But having that accountability is key, because I had to do the same thing too. I think you nailed it perfectly. Yeah, we're still doing it. Yeah, we have to. So I have coaches that I still pay for, and but I think that the universe hears us when we do things that are beyond our comfort zone and harder too. So for instance, when I hear a lot of people say, well, I would go to a retreat, but I don't really have the money, or I would invest in a meditation course, but it's so we always have these reasons, right? But when you go into that, we kind of circling back to discomfort, where it's just a little bit uncomfortable, that's where true transformation begins. It doesn't happen when you're comfy, cozy, and things are wonderful. You're not going to recreate yourself when you're like, I love my job, I love my life, I love everything about me, and I'm perfectly happy right here. You're not going to change to something else. You have to go. You hear all these stories, right, where people were down on their luck, where they were so unhappy, and that's where they said, I'm gone. And that was me moving to India. That was you leaving your job. Yeah. So for those who are saying, I get it, I need a coach. I get it, I need to start doing some new techniques. See if you can kind of step on the stool here with me. That they need to move into doing something difficult is going to create that transformation, right?
Yes, so because without that friction, nothing's going to happen, or nothing profound is going to happen. So you need that. You will most likely not move into that situation out of yourself, exactly due to the reasons you just explained. Oh man, if you're in your warm and fluffy comfort zone, why the fuck would you get out of there? Because it's so nice and warm and fluffy. Yeah. But sometimes you hit rock bottom, like I did, for instance, and then I had to do something else. That I had no other options left. But I think you don't necessarily need to get to that point of hitting rock bottom, as long as you become more aware at a certain sooner point, so that you can have a choice to ask for help and search for guidance, and be inspired by somebody else, but find somebody that's outside of your comfort zone. Find somebody that you don't know, find somebody that produces an itch or something, or this strange feeling, and listen to that, sit with it. So sit with your demons. Why would I go to X person and not to Y person? And then see what the difference is, feel what the difference is, and you can probably learn more from the one that's irritating you more.
Ooh.
I'm not here to be as a coach, for instance. I love it when people like me. I'm very grateful then. But 2 weeks ago, I was walking a mountain in Poland with a group of people. I was closing the line on the backside, and there were 2 people who had a hard time walking up that mountain. And then at a certain point, I'm asking, what does your backpack weigh? Because otherwise, I'll carry it for you, because you want to walk up that mountain. And they were a bit proud and no, it's okay. And then after I asked him twice and 3 times, it's
next time I'm not going to be nice anymore. You will hand me your backpack because I am here to help you like reach your goal, which in this case was climbing that mountain. And I'm not here to be liked. I'm here for your safety. And that's what my coach also did with me when I was in my burnout. And she said, like, I'm going to do things with you that you might not like or might not believe, but it'll be in your best interest. So yeah, and that's where friction happens, and that's where super growth happens. And that's why I also like to walk outside with people and not coach them in an office, because outside it might rain and that might produce friction, or the sun might be burning on your head, and that might produce something. But that's where transformation happens.
Yeah, whether that friction is the cold or the heat or it's the pocketbook. Either way, it's friction somewhere that is going to help transform them to being healthy, happy, strong, right? So I mean, you need the friction. You need that friction. So whether you're experimenting with a coach, or you're trying new things with meditation, or you're creating new routines, or you're going to retreats, I just did a podcast about how we can try all these things, and we can do them for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and months and months and months, or we can just immerse ourselves. You know, we can immerse ourselves in a retreat for a weekend and get more value, and we create change quickly. So I know you host you host retreats often. You can imagine those weekends are powerful for a reason, right? They're transformational. People learn about themselves. There's emotions, which is, energy in motion, right? Emotions that happen because it's almost like we're shaking the tree loose so that the fruit can fall,
It's like we have built this puzzle of ourselves without being aware of it. And then we forget that it's a puzzle, that it's loose pieces. And then, like, at days or weeks or weekends or whatever kind of situation, we shake up the tree, we stir the puzzle up, and then people see, oh man, there are all kinds of different parts of this puzzle. And then you can choose again, okay, these are the ones, these are my core puzzle pieces. I want to keep those, but this and this and this, it can go. And I'll find new pieces of the puzzle I can attach to my puzzle. I can build this new story about who I am. So I can, and that works best by finding comfort in the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So that's why I would advise people to search for discomfort every day. That's what I do. I actively cross borders, do crazy stuff to learn every day. And if I keep doing that, I keep learning, and then I can pass that on to my clients or people that are interested.
Yeah, most of your clients are in the Netherlands, or you do a lot of stuff all over Europe, yeah?
I do. I've got clients in the States too, and but ideally, I want to take them outside and next to each other. But sometimes that's just not happening, and then we'll work online. I'll ask them to go outside, and I go outside, for instance, if that's possible. Ideally, I would like face-to-face contact, live, that we can see, smell, and touch each other. But that's not always possible, and then we go for second best.
Well, a lot of the audience for Life as an Observer is North America and in Europe, and so if I guess as we kind of conclude here, I want people to know how to get a hold of you. I want them to be able to say, I really resonated with what Bart said. How do I get into coaching? Because I think that was a lot of our emphasis was, let's move into this contentment roller coaster. Let's go back to nature. Let's get that back to our true nature through maybe a little bit of discomfort, and reinventing ourselves is sometimes the home base. Is just saying, this is where I feel happy. So I want them to be able to find you. So can you tell the audience just a little bit how they can get a hold of you? Is the best way? Is it through your website, or is it?
It's really easy. If you go to my website, which is my first and last name, so www.bartscholtissen.nl, because I'm in the Netherlands. And my phone number is there. My mail number is there. My Instagram handle is there. It's really easy. Just go to my website.
Yeah, I'll put a link in the notes so they know how to get a hold of you. And if they want to see your mug, they can go to your Instagram page of it.
But my face is not on there too much because nature is on there.
Well, there's a few. Well, yeah, I think I follow your stories just mostly because of a lot of nature pictures, a lot of sunrises, sunsets, and of course a lot of hiking in the mountains and getting into the cold, which is a lot like mine too. I think that as we've as we spend more time in nature, I think we tend to enjoy it more. I remember I grew up here in southern into Utah, and I wanted to leave as quickly as possible because I felt like I was contained in this valley of these mountains, and I was like, I just felt like I couldn't stretch out. And now that I'm back, I'm like, why did I ever leave? Like, this is the most beautiful place ever. I love it here. So if those want to get a hold of you, they want to get into nature, they go to your website, which I'll leave it in the show notes. Cool. And if they wanted to just follow you, I'll put the Instagram there so they can kind of see what you're getting into. I know you host pretty much monthly, or even more than that, Wim Hof method fundamentals, advanced, and other courses, winter excursions. Excursions, summer excursions. I definitely need to come back for either one of those. I'm not sure which one that I'm gonna do, but right now we're working on just kind of getting established here in Utah, getting a few people getting back to nature, and then hopefully I can bring a whole crowd of people.
I'll get to Utah and we'll create something cool. That's
what I was saying. We have a really, really nice spot in the mountains that I think that you would really enjoy. There's some really, really neat spots here that allow us to just feel that with the animals and with the elements. Sometimes the elements are what make it so cool. The wind blowing and the snow coming down, and where it makes it just a little bit more difficult. So I look forward to having you here. It doesn't
need to be complicated. No, it's nature is really easy and straightforward. So the more we are in nature and connect with our own nature, the sort of not simple, but the easier it becomes to be in this present moment. Bit of snow, bit of wind, bit of rain, bit of sunshine, all good. Bit of earth.
I heat my van with a small little fireplace, so we can sleep at night. Rather than having all the conveniences and stuff, I have to feed wood into it, and
it's a conscious process. Yeah,
it's a conscious process, and I really like that rather than flipping a switch. It really feels good to me to do that, and I'm trying to find other processes where I can have more conscious. So the air conditioning I haven't quite figured out. For me it's okay, but when you have your dog in a metal box, you need to figure a few things out. So that's my next get back to nature. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do that. But Bart, thanks for spending an hour with me and chatting. We're going to chat a little bit offline, and I actually have something for you that's coming in the mail very, very soon. Cool. A little piece of Utah that I'll send to you, so you can look forward to seeing that. I appreciate your time immensely, my friend.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.